In my last video, I walked through six situations where doing Roth conversions doesn't make a whole lot of sense, even in retirement. But here's the other side. There are real specific scenarios where converting does create meaningful long-term benefit and protects what you've built. So today I want to show you when a Roth conversion actually reduces risk, increases flexibility, and sets you up better for the decades ahead. Because the goal isn't to convert just because everybody says you should or because it seems like something cool to do. The goal is to know when it genuinely fits your situation. So here's six situations where doing a Roth conversion does make sense. And the first one is this. You're in a low income year and your tax bracket is temporarily lower. This is a pretty classic scenario, actually, and it's real. So maybe you retired at 62, you're delaying Social Security until 70, your pension hasn't started yet, and you're living off savings or taxable accounts. Well, in this case, your taxable income might be the lowest it's ever going to be. You might be in the 12% tax bracket right now, but once Social Security, pension income, once that all kicks in, you might be in the 22 or 24% bracket or higher. Well, converting now while your bracket is low in that 12%, instead of paying 22 or 24 later, that's real savings for you. So that window doesn't last forever, of course. So you use it strategically. And if you do, you can move a significant amount of your money to Roth at the lowest tax cost you're likely ever to see. Great scenario. Reason number two is you want to reduce future RMDs, required minimum distributions, that could push you into higher IRMA brackets. We talked about IRMA in the last video, and that's the surcharges that you pay on Medicare based on your income. Now, your required minimum distributions are likely to start at age 73 or 75, and then they go up every year from there. So if your traditional IRA or 401k is large enough, those RMDs have the potential to push you up into higher tax brackets, whether you need the money or not. Remember, these aren't voluntary. But having that extra income could trigger IRMA surcharges on your Medicare, costing you hundreds of dollars a month extra in Medicare premiums when maybe it's not what you were planning for. So if you have considerable retirement assets that you're not actually touching, maybe you do have a good pension and Social Security, and you're not really relying on your assets, well, what's going to happen is those are sitting there growing, which means that your future RMDs are going to get bigger every year. You're not spending it now, but eventually the IRS is going to say, hey, we need our tax dollars, start taking some of that out. We don't care what tax bracket you're in. So in this case, converting strategically before your RMD age can help slow the growth or reduce the balances on those pre-tax accounts, which in turn will lower the future RMDs that you have to take, which gives you more control. And smaller RMDs typically means more control over your taxable income, more control over your Medicare costs, and potentially staying in a lower tax bracket for decades in your retirement. So this is especially powerful if you genuinely don't need that money to survive. You're just being forced to take it and pay tax on it anyway. Reason number three is that you would want to do a Roth conversion is that you want to leave tax-free money to your heirs. So if you're planning on leaving money to your kids or grandkids, Roth IRAs are a much better inheritance than traditional IRAs. When the Secure Act happened a number of years ago, basically it said that if you leave an IRA or a pre-tax money to your heirs, they've got to get all of that money out in a 10-year period, which means if they're in their peak earning years when they inherit that, maybe they're making $150,000, $200,000, $250,000, and that inherited IRA is now required to be taken out on top of that, you're kicking them into their highest marginal tax rate, which means they might be losing 30 to 40% to taxes on that inheritance. However, if you strategically convert to Roth, they inherit that money tax-free. There's no tax hit. So you've essentially prepaid the tax at your lower tax rate in anticipation so they don't have to pay it at what's potentially their peak tax rate. Now, reason number 4 you may want to do a Roth conversion is to lock into today's tax rates before they change. So here's the thing. None of us have a crystal ball, but we do know a few things. We know that the federal debt's really high. We know that tax rates are historically low. In fact, these low tax rates just got extended indefinitely. And while those have been extended, there's no guarantees they stay this way forever. So if you're a person who believes that taxes are more likely to go up than down in the next 20 to 30 years, well, paying tax now and locking in today's tax rates might make sense. So you're essentially making a bet that your tax rate today is lower than it will be in the future, either because rates go up across the board or because your own income situation changes. And that's not fear-mongering, that's just acknowledging the math and uncertainty, because we can't predict the future. Now, reason 5 is that you want more flexibility and control in retirement. So Roth IRAs don't have required minimum distributions during your lifetime. That means you're not forced to take money out, pay tax on it, and potentially push yourself into higher brackets or trigger IRMA surcharges. You have complete control over when and how much you withdraw, and that flexibility matters. So maybe one year you want to help a grandkid with college, maybe another year you want to take a dream trip or buy your dream car. With the Roth, if you have that pile of tax-free money, you can pull that out without spiking your income and creating downstream tax problems for yourself. And if you don't need the money, it just keeps growing tax-free. And as long as you want, that's a level of control that traditional IRAs don't give us. Now, reason number 6 that you might want to do a conversion. If you're in a state with no income tax now, but you might move later. So if you live in a state with no income tax like Florida, Texas, Tennessee, Nevada, and you're doing Roth conversion, you're only paying federal tax on that conversion. So if you expect in the future that you may move to a state like my state, Minnesota, with a state income tax, well, if you do a conversion here, you're going to pay both federal and state income taxes. So converting now while you're in a no tax state could save you 5, 6, 7, 8, 9% in state taxes that you'd otherwise owe. So if there's any chance you might relocate in the future, maybe it's closer to family or some other reason, this would be an advantage that you don't want to give up. Roth conversions aren't right for everybody, but for the right person, they can go a long way in reducing your long-term tax risk or giving you more control over your financial situation in retirement. So if you're in a low-income window, if you're concerned about future RMDs, if you're leaving money to your heirs, or maybe you just want more flexibility, conversions are worth running the numbers for. But you have to be strategic. Don't just do it because someone said it might be a good idea. You want to do a conversion because it makes sense for your plan in your life. So if you want help thinking through whether a Roth conversion works for your plan or not, that's what we do for our clients on a regular basis. Feel free to reach out via the link in the description. Have a great day.